Hello, it's Chris Thomas. Welcome to my channel. This is another in my series of safe locations for continental USA. Tonight we're doing California, Lake Tahoe, northeastern California, and we're going out in the Pacific to look at Hawaii, and then we're coming back to look at North Dakota and South Dakota as a group, and then we're going to finish up with Nebraska. So the information that I've been giving on these landlocked states, or the plains states, have been rather bad news for a lot of these states so far. The thing is that it's kind of important to give the facts, and the facts are is a pole shift is rough on everyone, and but the cool thing about these central states, they don't have to worry about pole shift waves. Imagine if you live on the coast or in an island in the Pacific, with the exception of course with Hawaii, which you'll find out about that. So have patience. I want to introduce waking dreams for people who are bound and determined to stay in their state for the pole shift, regardless of the information we're giving here. So there are ways of dealing with difficult ground situations in these states, and that's going to be waking dreams, and I'll be introducing that more and more of that as I go along. Okay, let's head into California. Okay, let's take a close look at California. California is really, it's half valley. The Sacramento Valley is very low. It's like 400 feet. It's very low, 194 feet above sea level. So that entire valley is going to flood massively during the hour of the pole shift. Water is going to be lapping right up into the Sierras. Zeta Tox says it's going to go right into all these little valley rifts and fill with water, seawater. So that's going to happen to California there. The other curious thing about California is that there's a fault line that runs behind Los Angeles and San Jose and San Francisco out into the Pacific, and that is the San Andreas fault line. So to the east of the San Andreas fault line you have the North American plate, but to the west you have the Pacific plate. So the entire coast of California, most of it, is actually the plate, the sea that the Pacific Ocean is sitting on. So it seemed to me that all of this land to the west of the San Andreas Fault is really just compressed rubble from millions of years of the oceanic plates, Pacific oceanic plates, pushing underneath the North American plate. And this is just rubble that's accumulated over millions of years. So no wonder it's full of fault lines. Full of it, fault lines. There's another interesting thing about California is that we have to look at another map. This is the continental plate map. Now you see South America here. South the South American plate is driving and rolling to the west like that, slowly rolling. It's going to split here, but during the pole shift, but it's rolling. So what's happening is that if you look at this shape here, so the Atlantic Ocean is spreading, and so this plate here, this is the front edge of this plate, the South American plate, that's pushing this way. Of course, it's going to grind the Caribbean plate down on the southern end of it. Where does it? Okay, be on the southern end of the plate. It's going to be pushed down. The northern end gets popped up a little bit, but essentially this cutting edge here, driving edge, hammer edge, is driving the Mexico westward. So if you can imagine that, pushing against over the Coscos plate, and it's driving the North American plate, Mexico, into the Pacific. The North American plate is resisting all of this. It's very large. You can see how big it is. It goes way off up under the Arctic. So this is the North American plate here. Everything north of here is all plate. So that's not going anywhere. So what's happening then is the South American plate is putting the North American plate under a lot of stress. And if you look where California is, right here. So California really is the crack point, the folding point for the pressure that the South American plate is putting on the North American plate. So that's why California is such a mess of fractures, of rock fractures. So it's also very, very highly populated. So one has to ask themselves, what are Californians going to do when they see the second sun in the sky? There's no sense going to a desert to survive in the time, which is Nevada. Maybe some people move into Arizona, this area here, but most of Arizona is also desert. So the population is just going to have to migrate into Oregon and into Washington, or just bite the bullet and go into Mexico, into these lands down here. Now, so we have where can one survive if you were stuck in California? So if you really had to stay in California, let me find that little volcanic map here. So this is Northern California right here. Go back out a little bit. So this is California here. So we've got Mount Shasta, and we have another little mountain, Medicine Lake. We have another volcano right there. So we have one here as well. So 3 volcanoes, the Lassen volcano. So you get 3 volcanoes in Northern California as well. We have one here too. We have the Clear Lake. So you've got, remember, we want to be east of volcanoes, because what will happen is that this coast will spin down and be down here, and the prevailing winds. But let's put it back into position here. The new prevailing winds will move like this, curling toward. This will be the equator over here. They're curling that way. Prevailing winds. So that's going to blow the volcanic ash that will be be a lot of it in the aftertime. out into the Pacific. So you don't want to be in these mountains here. Besides, there's a lot of there's going to be a great deal of mountain building along here, and this is going to be hot earth. Sacramento Valley, I think it's hot now. Wait till the Pacific plate start pressing underneath it. So impossible to survive in the Sacramento Valley. Very, very tenuous survival up in the Sierras here. Very tenuous, and it'll be incredible amount of migrants coming up there. So the only little section of California that is remotely survivable will be in the, well, I've got things around. Let's turn a map here. Okay, that's not going to cooperate. So it would be in the extreme northeastern corner of California. But a lot of that is desert up there as well. So right in here. So we've got some very nice looking land now. This is beautiful land. I don't know that it doesn't look very fertile, but I don't know that you could always build that up. But you're going to be a ways from the sea. You're going to be a ways from the sea there, and of course you need to be. So that's the only place in California that I can see it would be this area here, but it's not recommended. So between the pole shift waves and the California quakes that are predicted to happen after the New Madrid occurs, probably about 2 years to a year and a half before the pole shift. I'm guessing that'll be about 2020 or 2021. California will fracture, roads will break, bridges will break, and escape by car will be very difficult, very tenuous. People will be on foot with rumpled roads. The roads are breaking now and rumpling. So bridges, roads will be gone. So it'll be very difficult getting out. So my suggestion is, if you're in California now, is to get out as soon as you can. Get out before 2019. Sell and get out. And well, where you go, that'll be obviously. I can make suggestions, and you'll see the suggestions that I'll be making in future videos. But that's California. Completely not recommended, completely dangerous, and in fact I'm suggesting, as I said, moving out in the next 4 years out of California, if not sooner. So that's California. Okay, this is an addendum to California, and because I've had an inquiry about the Lake Tahoe area. The Lake Tahoe area is on the eastern side of the Sierras, and it is volcanoes are north-northwest and west-northwest of this area, so, but they are going to be blowing out into the Pacific wherever they are. I'm not going to identify the volcanoes here because we're not doing California, but it's going out this way to the sea. So you're not bothered by that, but this whole area is subject to massive mountain building. So the tons of rock landslides and rockfall coming down these mountain slopes. So that makes any completely out of the question of surviving through here, trying to survive through here. The other problem with this area is that the seawater is going to push over the Sacramento Valley, and it's going to push into these river valleys, some of which are as low as 2,700 feet, one through here, and it's going to fill up these areas here with seawater. It's going to flow all the way through here. It's going to get to Lake Tahoe through here as well. So all these river valleys are going to become reverse rivers with seawater flowing right over the mountains. And the reason for that is, and make this clear, is that the waves of the pole shift are not just waves. They're actually, Zeta Talk says they're 500 to 600 feet in height, but it's really what it is. It's not a wave that's lapping up against the Sierras. What it is, it's a front. It's an ocean front with ocean behind it that is coming in. So it's going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing from the ocean. It's going to push all the way into the inland. It's going to push because of the unimaginable amounts of seawater behind the wave are going to funnel up these mountain passes, and you're going to end up with seawater lakes all the way on into Nevada, into western Nevada, and it's going to. I believe that this area is going to fill with seawater. It's going to contaminate Lake Tahoe with seawater, and it may even be for years. Now, as I've said, if people living in this area are so set on surviving in this area, even if you're willing to move into the desert area here, if you have the wherewithal and that kind of equipment and that kind of a community, because you're not going to do it on your own, and then after the pole shift, when things settle down, is to migrate back to Lake Tahoe area, then you're obviously going to do that because you know these areas intimately. You're going to need a lot of resources to do that, but it's certainly not recommended, and it's not recommended. Now, and looking again, we have an area here that is still in California, and it's east of the Sierras. So you've got areas up in here that potentially could be an area to survive in. Again, it would depend if you have the family roots. You've got family, lots of strong people. You've got resources. You have lots of money. You've got steel buildings. You've got secure perimeter. It would require a massive study to figure that all out. But potentially, it's possible to survive in these areas. I mean, there is tree cover here. You have freshwater sources, but obviously people who have those kind of resources, if you to pool your resources and cooperate, you may be able to do some type of survival in this area. But for the average person, I'm recommending to move out of California altogether, and just go to an area that is where survival is easier, and also what you want, of course, I keep harping on this, and I'm going to keep harping on it, is if you can position yourself where the sea, the pole melt, comes near you, so you have access to the sea. And that is hard to tell on the west coast because you've got mountain building. They say 1,000 feet high that the Sierras and Rockies will be pushed up. This continental section here, the mountainous section, will be pushed up 1,000 feet. So there will be areas where the sea will reach through. And if you could position yourself, carefully examine an area, and find an area where you could either migrate to the sea or where the sea came to you, I think that would be just ideal. But meanwhile, back at Lake Tahoe, I think it, for the average person, is not suggested to try to survive in the Lake Tahoe area. Okay, let's take a look at North Dakota and South Dakota. The first thing, obviously, that about these states is that, of course, they're landlocked. And now I'm going to keep harping on food sources because some people might be just going directly to these portions, just watching only for their state. So if someone's going to ride out the pole shift in these states, which probably would not be a big problem if they wanted to do that, because there's no pole shift waves to worry about. It's just earthquakes, which are no big deal really, even though they will be very intense. But you're not going to be, in a house because it's forewarning. So you're going to be forewarned. So that's not a problem. It'll be rough. I'm not saying it's not going to be rough. I'm just, but the thing will be about probably the worst of it will be moving land actually being pushed from the west. And now this actually is something I may have understated for Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. Although I do mention that the continental divide is moving about 50 miles west, eastward, towards North Dakota and South Dakota. The land, the flat land, the plains to the east of the continental divide, all the way to North Dakota and South Dakota, and probably Nebraska and Kansas, will be affected by the push from the west. So you'll have to be prepared for rumpling land, and which would mean hill building, any cliffs that are in these areas, likely to be collapsing and rolling with rock, that kind of thing. So you just imagine what land is going to do when it's pushed from. If you imagine a lake, or more important, better, imagine a river that's frozen over and it's spring, and the water starts to melt, and so you have cracked ice that's all over the surface of the river, slowly starting to move, and you see all the bits of ice that are, some are popped, some are up in the air and tipped, and they're all laying in different directions. And so it's so you've got that movement of the ice coming from upstream, and it's going to tip and compress all the bits of ice the shards and the plates of ice that are broken away into a pile. So it's a similar effect with land, in that you'll have bits of rock and bluff and coming through the soil. Probably the worst of that will be occur in the within 50 to 100 miles of the Continental Divide to the east of it, but that will be happening to an extent in North Dakota and South Dakota as well. The other thing about these two states is that, of course, it's almost cut in half by the Missouri River. And now I did a count. There's 29 dams in between North Dakota and South Dakota. So all those dams are going to break. So that means you're going to have a lot of flooding in these two states. I didn't do a dam count actually of Montana and the others previously, but you should, to get an idea of the type of water that's just going to spread through this flat plain here. So that's a problem, in that obviously if you're not going to be situated on a flat plain in a state that's going to experience the most rain it's ever seen, that anyone has ever seen, and for many months, perhaps years into the aftertime, the rain will be way more than you expect, and so there'll be a lot of fresh water flowing and all the broken dams. So it's going to be very very wet and very flooded. So travel by vehicle. If you have any gas, if there's any roads that are reasonable condition, they're going to be flooded over. So it's going to be, if you're going to travel, it's going to be by boat, and also you're going to have to carry that boat as well. So it'd be they call portaging. Huge flooding. Now, after all that's done, then settling in your survival camp, if you're well positioned in somewhere. I like these Black Hills here because it has tree cover, and it's high. You can see that it's high here, so that would be a potential area if you have to stay in the state, and then you could migrate back to your land. But food is going to be the main focus. Food and clean water. So even though the survival will be doable, it's just going to be one big floodplain. And unless you're extremely well set up with years of backup food, you know what your food supply is going to be. You've got your water supply. You've got methods of purifying water. You've got defenses set up. Now, on defenses, I want to cover that next. Then, obviously, you're going to make a decision to do that, and you're going to have to do it beforehand, perhaps about a year before everyone else, because now North Dakota and South Dakota are close to the New Madrid. Well, they're not that close, but close enough, where you have the New Madrid breaking all the bridges on the Mississippi. So that's going to cause complications. Military presence is going to be FEMA presence. It's going to be various governmental agencies. It's going to be a mess, actually. So any aid that you may need in these areas during that period of time, I don't think will be forthcoming, because it'll be focused over here, and there's no way that the U.S. government can look after all these people, the millions and millions of people in the Eastern Seaboard when the New Madrid goes. They're not going to be able to touch, maybe to supply and rebuild the homes and rebuild dams. It's just not going to be enough time. Plus, the government is going to know about. It's going to be more and more known if there hasn't been an announcement by the U.S. administration or some world administration by then about the existence of Planet X. So the awareness of the pole shifts is going to raise. There's all kinds of factors that are going to come into play when this New Madrid goes. So any other states are going to be not going to be under consideration for assistance. So you're really on your own, a year and a half or year or so before the pole shift, whenever the New Madrid is going to happen. I think it's going to be about a year or less or so before it culminate. That is, it slowly builds, right? And it's going to culminate, I think, about a year to 8 months before. That's roughly before the pole shift itself. So anyone living in these areas are going to have to prepare as if the pole shift is going to occur a year earlier than everyone else. So the closer we get to the New Madrid area and these states, the more the New Madrid effects come into play. Now, this is just my opinion. Now, you could be living in Oregon, and you could be reliant on some supply or family or some kind of product or service that's coming out of the east, and of course it's not going to be forthcoming after the not likely to be forthcoming after the New Madrid. So everyone's going to be affected by the New Madrid in some way, but physically, as far as assistance is concerned, I highly doubt if anything happens in these two states after or at the same time in New Madrid. You ain't going to see any assistance. That's my opinion. So now we've got millions of people living in this area here, all through here, millions. And now when the pole shift strikes, I don't know why migrants would want to move into South Dakota or North Dakota, but they may take it into their heads that life is better elsewhere. So you're going to have people moving through these areas, through Wisconsin and Minnesota. So one wants to be. Now, the reason why I think there's going to be many people is because there's no pole shift waves. I mean, the Great Lakes are going to slosh. I think it's recommended to be 50 feet above the lake. So that is in height, not in distance, in height above the lake for the pole shift, at least. And so that means that no pole shift waves are going to reach all through here, right? This is all protected from the pole shift. So that means the millions and millions and millions of people that live in these areas are going to survive. So that means that in these inner states, there's going to be many more, 90% more, 80% at least more that are going to survive the pole shift. That means anyone in the inner states and it's also obviously Canada, but I'll do Canada later. There's going to be lots of people, tons of people moving through and back and forth looking for food. Food is what they're going to be looking for, food and water. And so that's the thing about North Dakota and South Dakota. Ride out the pole shift, but afterwards, massive wet. So, I think I've covered it pretty well. I've harped about food, migrants, the proximity to the New Madrid area, and the migration. My estimation, unless you've got roots down in North Dakota and South Dakota, family roots, lots of family, and you've got lots of food supply, and you've got your future food supply, and you're identified, and you're sure, then, well, as I said, you're going to make that decision to stay or not. But my suggestion is, if you're here, is to move out and position yourself so that you can get access at least to the Great Lakes, because the Great Lakes will give you travel, food, and trade opportunities. Another thing about being on a plane like North Dakota and South Dakota is that you're going to be quite visible, and so any military flyovers from Colorado, from the so-called, apparently the U.S. government is going to try to set up in Denver. There's going to be a huge military presence. So you're going to have a military, it's going to be like a hive of wasps, and these wasps are going to be flying out from this area looking for fresh food supplies, maybe people. Who knows what the military is going to do? You just look at what they do now, so you can, and what FEMA is doing now. So you got a hive of wasps over here in Denver. So they fly out over North Dakota and South Dakota, and they can see a smoke trail in the sky. Expect a helicopter to be landing nearby. So between the hive of wasps, the migrants moving westward, the floodplains being flooded, and the Missouri expanding to make it, it might be moving a lot faster than one would expect. People in the plains, and I've never been there, but if with flat plain, water doesn't move very fast. But if you're in British Columbia and you're near a stream, like where I am, it's moving fast. I mean, you take your life in your hands if you try to cross a river in British Columbia. So that's what I'm used to. So this river is going to be flowing fast, and the people live here aren't going to be used to that. So yeah, and it's going to be much bigger. Anyways, between all these factors, as I said, really it's tenuous to survive in North Dakota and South Dakota, and like it's tenuous to survive everywhere. It just depends on the state and the conditions. Now I know I seem a little bit negative about this, but there's a reason for that, but I'm going to cover that in my introduction to this, so people get it straight as to what I'm doing here. So yeah, a beautiful state, no doubt, but its character is going to change in the aftertime. So people who live here are going to understand the land. It's just adding the factors of the, as I've said, I'm harping on it, on the migration. Add that factor. Add the factor that it's very, very flat. So it's going to flood. And think 3 times the flow on Missouri, and no dams, all broken. And if you add all those factors to it, and you apply that to your knowledge about food gathering and what the conditions are going to be in the aftertime, which is low light for years, your weather is going to improve. We know that your weather is going to improve a little, but you add all those factors of of after-time conditions to where you live. If you're living in these states, you add all together, and will see the conditions. And that's really what I'm trying to do with these series, is give the conditions that I think, in my opinion, taking it from Zeta Talk, and then apply them in your own mind, because people who live in North Dakota and South Dakota, I mean, they know the state intimately, the land intimately. So if you apply it correctly, then you'll get a good concept, a series of concepts and conditions that will be in the aftertime.
Ai, wala lo kia wi kana hele hele. Wala lo.
Okay, in this section, we're going to look at Hawaii. The thing about Hawaii is that the ocean swells, the massive ocean swells will move around the islands and won't wash up into the islands as much as one would think. So the islands are survivable, and but I definitely wouldn't want to be on a little island like this, where you have, well, here you can see the pole melt. In the case the pole melt is going to be about 5. This is roughly what it's going to look like here after the pole melt in about 2025. This island here, so it will lose, but it does gain. They do gain in elevation about 150 feet, but but you're still looking at a smaller island. So, but at any rate, before the pole melt, you still only have 810 feet. So I wouldn't want to ride out the pole shift on an island like that in the Hawaii island chain. So obviously you'll want to be on a high island. So, but having said that, I think the thing about these islands for after-time survival is more to do, I think, with the culture. Now, I've only been there a few times. I don't know the culture there. I just have an impression that that living on the island, these islands, is a very different lifestyle choice, and I think that that it would be more conducive to after-time survival due to I believe the type of easygoing cooperative society that I believe the Hawaiian island chain seems to have, because of the Polynesian influence and just the lifestyle there. So I think that's a special case as far as survival, and plus it's right close to the sea, so there'll be lots of food. Now there will be the issue of all the volcanoes with their ash washing out to the sea. So there's going to be most likely a fair amount of volcanic gloom for Hawaiians to live with for a decade or two, or maybe less, depending. We don't know for sure. The Zeta Talk says that if the volcanic gloom will persist for 25 years, but get better and better as time goes on. So, but they say that the access to the sea, the easy access to food, and well, travel between the islands will offset the volcanic gloom for that area. So that is what I would say about Hawaii. As far as survival locations. I think that people on the island would know best as to what areas is safe. Obviously, you still want to stay away from rockfall, so you wouldn't want to be on the side of a volcano. Now, I also understand that that these volcanoes are not going to erupt as much as one would think, and that's because this whole Pacific plate in the center of the Pacific is actually being raised up. So Hawaii actually gains about 140 to 150 feet. So that's going to put a negative pressure on the magma buildup and all the action going on underneath the plates. So it actually relieves pressure on the volcanoes in the Hawaiian Island chain. So not as much volcanic goings on, but obviously there will be some. So to recap on the Hawaiian Island chain, I think because of the type of peoples that live there, the laid-back society, the cooperative society, and it makes it a positive place to be. Also, the fact that it's so close to the sea for fishing and trade in the aftertime between the islands is be wonderful. And it's not going to be as salted as much as one would think because of the ocean flowing around the islands, and also the lack of volcanic activity that one would think would happen because of the raising up of the islands, reducing the pressure on the magma beneath the islands. So it gets a thumbs up for survival and aftertime living. Okay, let's look at Nebraska. Nebraska is 5,000 feet above sea level to the west, and to the extreme east along the Missouri it is 1,000 feet above sea level. So we know that the rivers that run west to east in Nebraska are, well, they're flowing downhill by a 5-to-1 ratio. So we also have 28 dams in Nebraska, so they're all going to break during the hour of the pole shift, if not before. So that's going to fill up the Missouri River, which has 2 nuclear stations on it. So that's going to push the radiation leakage southward. So that's one thing good about Nebraska. It'll be probably pretty clean, except maybe the southeastern areas here, which unfortunately are the hardest rock in the whole state is to the southeast here in the blue. So which is all going to flood over because of all that water flowing from the broken dams flowing down to the Missouri. So that's going to leave a lot of swollen rivers. That with the pole shift rains is just going to be a massive flow of water west to east. Now, during the pole shift, this is what it's going to look like. That's the 90-degree tip, like so. And we're going to overlay my map. And here we have my interpretation of North America, tipped 90 degrees, and after the pole melt. So this makes it about 2025, 2024. So we have a massive sea that has moved into Canada, to its north, which is now west. And so there's a lot of rain that's going to fall in this area here from this great sea, the expanded Arctic sea, which is going to drive a lot of rain into Nebraska. Now, speaking of the Arctic, it's actually Nebraska's going to be warmer. So the weather is going to be great. It's got great soil, Nebraska, and it's going to have lots of rain in the time. So for those people who choose to grin and bear it, knuckle down and find some place to survive in Nebraska, it will be, as far as an inland a landlocked state is concerned, it will be, it could be a great place to be, but certainly not in the southeast, but possibly, well, wherever you can find your good land. So it's going to be another water disaster in Nebraska. So in Nebraska, the time will be fraught with the military flyovers from Denver, Colorado. So you're going to need to hide from the military with no smoke trails. So you're going to have propane for cooking for years in the time, so you're not seen. So lots of water and rumpling land to the west because of the continental push, and the southeastern corner is not good for the nuclear stations that we're going to break, but the radiation is going to flow southward along the Missouri. So I'd like to conclude this video. This is general comments about the difficulties that the states are going to be facing, and the fact that all states are going to be facing difficulties. So it's so important to look at the difficulties head on. We know ground's going to move. Everyone knows the ground's going to move. Just move differently depending on which state you're in, what part of the world you're in. And we all know there's going to be big water problems, and it just depends whether you're on a plain or you're in the mountains, where the water, you're on rock or clay, where the water can flow off without taking the ground with it. In the case of plains, the water is just going to spread out, and if you're near rivers, they're going to overflow. So it's just pretty obvious geological, physiological conditions. The probably the more difficult ones to imagine will be migration, and the difficulties that comes with an established camp somewhere, having to deal with migrants coming by looking for food. As I've said before, hopefully some communities would have something for people who are looking, families or children are looking to help them. But there will be the difficult component of thieves and marauders. So security has to be considered against desperate migrants. And the thing about what we've been talking about these plains, states on the plains here, is that there will be many survivors from the pole shift, because there are no pole shift waves to take them out. So there are going to be many people looking for food and water and a safe place to live. So that's something that's not so easily determined. So each state has to look at that, people wherever you are. And of course the other major difficulty is radiation from radiative material leaking from nuclear reactors. So that's another thing that is difficult to get a handle on in certain states. So we'll be covering more of that in other states. And of course, the big one is volcanoes. Luckily, in the West Coast, they're all the U.S. They're heading out to the Pacific. So, and then you've got the difficulty of being, in a desert. Like Nevada has a very, it's just going to remain a desert. So, so there are very obvious things that everyone has to look for. And but I keep telling people that we're going back to old times where there will be no technology. An axe and a shovel is going to be your technology. Looking after your livestock if you have any. Growing food. So societies are going to take a big step backwards, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a good step. But it's going to bring people closer together, and it's going to bring people closer to the land that they live on. There'll be no TV watching, and be no texting. At best, there might be a little bit of ham radio or citizens band. So please think in terms of going back to the 1800s, maybe before, to an agrarian type of lifestyle, and of course that is closer to the origins of life and living close to the land, and that's synonymous with reading the signs, reading the birds, reading the mammals, and the reading the waking dreams that come our way. So they will be flying at you. Now, whether you choose to believe it or not, or whether you are aware of it, or whether you're just becoming aware of it, and if you are aware of it, you will see the signs flying at you, and they will guide you this every step of the way, and that will be your real ace in the deck. Will be in your hand. That'll be your ace, is waking dreams. So that's it on California and the Dakotas and Nebraska and Hawaii. And so we'll conclude that. And thanks for watching.